didn't even get to the hard one and it's still trying to fucking kill me with fucking RNG. Like, he shouldn't be able to do that. So bullshit. And I forgot to charge. Oh my god, and I jumped out of it. If you can't say fuck you to your friends, who can you say fuck you to? Fuck you! It is what it is. Let's get her done. New character. We got the Sorceress going now. And we're gonna do it as a no trade. Or here we go. Let's see how we can do the Miller. If he's gonna be a hard fight or not.
Your sickness controls him.
Ooh. Oh god. Oh, perfect timing to stun him. Oh god. Nice. Yeah, just do this one last thing and then I'll give you everything that you promised. Oh, I'm sorry, just do this one last thing and then I'll give you everything that I promised. Oh, please, just do this one last thing and then I'll give you everything that I promised. Oh, please, just do this one last thing and then I'll give you the power. I swear, I'll give you the power if you just do this one tiny last thing. Feed this soul to the beast. And then afterwards, feed yourself to the beast. He's not doing the thing. Man, he didn't do the thing where he does like the mist. Oh man, I thought I was gonna die there. Laura Jordan, welcome to the stream. Thank you very much for the follow, good sir. How is it going? We're trying our first challenge run because we got bored. So we're and Fireball's not till level 31. So we're like, well, let's just use staff skills and see how good staff skills are. Because I remember freezing shard being really good when I was using it on my witch. And yeah, it is really good. We just need a better wand. What level are we? 18? We could use the other wand with the level 6 skill, but this is a level 9 skill right now. Do you play Path of Exile, Laura? Let me guess. You're a graphic designer, and you want me to buy your art. Is going good, by the way? Yes, it is going good. You are first follow of the day. That's good. Dead. Full charge up? Oh my god, that's insane. It only did 400 damage. Because, like, none of the fireballs hit. So close. Okay, I just need to kill him. Holy shit. Yeah, this character's borked though. Fuck it. I'm done with it. I tried. Insert 3 fates to unlock the door to the Trail Master? What are fates? Cowardly fate. Oh, I didn't know there was like an extra thing. Everything ready for tomorrow. So, remember, as always, you can't say fuck you to your friends. Who can you say fuck you to? Fuck you. And he doesn't have a body. So it's just kind of the arms, and he's got like his flapping gullet. Kind of just chilling there. Any of these come kind of close. That looks more like a guy wearing an octopus, which is the back 3 side legs braided and then the front 2 arms. So bend back so they could like kind of arch back like that. Beak doesn't open at this end, it opens like this. And how they used to fly is they would open their mouths and they would swish their heads back and forth and they would catch other birds. Oh my god. I mean, it's close. Literally, like, fucking something along this lines. Like, take this one. So this one's fucking amazing. Okay, there. The contrast. I love it. This is interesting. This is really interesting. Yeah, this is more like it. Ooh, I like this. Workstation. You can't say fuck you to your friends. Who can you say fuck you to? Fuck you. This could be like a forming of picture. There being created alongside, and you can see how there's like the crystal shell of the celestial being, and then this is like the rock and everything that's like being pulled out of space around it over time to form it into a planet. And how did it get like an actual body out of this? I'm so confused. And a female body of that. That is actually, that is not that bad at all. That's the avian right there. That's what the basic, I guess, female concept for an avian. And the males would have more of like a hippogriff, like thick mane around their necks. That it's like, I'm thinking of them as like the kind of dwarf species, because they're a little bit smaller, and so literally they have their manes braided in specific ways, and it's like you know, different braids represent different houses, represent different cultures, and you know, stuff like that. So you can tell like what basically family an avian male is from based upon the braid of his mane. Remember, if you can't say fuck you to your friends, who can you say fuck you to? Fuck you. For the males, something like this. And a little bit different for the female. Same way how I'm doing, like, for instance, this is like a female avian. Yo, yo, boys, we back. We back at it. So, we got some story stuff lined up for, like, scene creation. But before we do that, I had 2 ideas that require attention. This is apparently louder than I want it to be. Let's try that. Let me know if that's too loud. Hey, do you say F you to Val every stream? No, but I should. I really should say fuck you to him all the time. We haven't moved... Well, we are now, okay? We were at level 0 where we just said fuck you at the end of the stream, but you know what? We're moving up in the world. Thank you, Muffin. We are now saying fuck you to everyone. So fuck you, Muffin. Welcome to the stream. How's it going? You're so close! So close! Okay, so we got 1 here. We're gonna drop that there. And we got 1 here. Always a pleasure, because, you know, it goes 2 ways. It's like you could either say fuck you to your friends, or it's like, you know, would you rather fuck your friend or your a stranger, right? So we got the death of Zaid and the banquet. So this is our short story, and this is, we came up with an idea. So this is the idea for the death of Zaid. And basically, Zaid is like the kind of second in command to Husai, who is the guild leader. And there's no like, Varius is actually like the second in command. Like, he's the deputy of the build of the guild. But like, Husai has a special soft spot for Zaid, because Husai is unable to basically procreate. So he's never going to have a mate. So he's never going to have any kids. So he kind of looks at Zaid as his kid. And he's trying to be like this mentoring father figure towards this guy. And he's like just at the level where he's become basically a squire. And I don't know what I want to call them. The working term at the moment is journeyman. So you basically like leaving the tree means you're an outsider, essentially. So it's a holder word, we'll have some other word, but basically you go as an outsider. And that's like, you're just leaving the tree. And then step up from there is journeyman, which is basically like a squire to a knight. And that's like a squire to an adventurer. And you basically get knighted by the adventurer that you've been squiring for. And it's kind of the idea of the old school knights, where it's like, whoever knighted you is kind of your reputation, you know? So if you're knighted by one of the greatest knights in the kingdom, it's like, holy shit, you're worthy. Whereas it's like, oh, you were knighted by this backstreet, you know, drunk knight. So it's like, whoever knighted you, whoever made you an adventurer, kind of solidifies your, like, standard role as an adventurer, kind of like a knighthood would. And that's where I got the idea of that. So it's like journeyman, so like outsider to journeyman to adventurer. And Zaid is basically at the very beginning of being a journeyman, to the point that he's left the tree and he's been to Ifrit, but he's never been outside of Ifrit. He's never been in any sort of combat. He's never been in any sort of danger, essentially. And this is Husai's doing, because Husai is worried about Zaid, and this is kind of a character flaw that Husai has to get over at the very beginning of the book, within the first quarter of the book, essentially. And it goes from him basically being overconfident about his position and his power to doubting himself. And it causes this huge, basically, downfall in his character when Zaid dies. And what happens is Zaid really, really wants to go on this expedition. And Husai has said, no, this is going to be extremely dangerous. Like, even at the beginning, if it's not dangerous, it's going to get dangerous. And once we get into it, there's no getting out of it. So he's basically said to Zaid that he has to stay back. And if this does mean war, then he is probably not going to be an adventurer. But if this just blows over and everything is good, then this will be the first step to him proving that he's more mature now. And he's able to, like, stand aside and be like, okay, you're the adventurer, you know what's best, I'll listen to you. And Zaid kind of does this. Like, he tries multiple times to, like, sneak his way out, but Husai always catches him. And so it's like this final parting moment before they're about to go to the first Beastman village in the caves outside of Ifrit. Alright, sounds good, Muffin. Have a good one. We'll see yous in a bit. And outside of Ifrit, they're about to leave, right? And it's like Zaid's hiding in the caravan, essentially, right? And Husai's like, hey man, come on, like, we've been through this, like, you can't come with us. Just, like, remember all those things you were talking to me about? Like, and your thoughts were all jumbled about them? Put all your thoughts together into, like, an essay, and write me an essay about, like, your feelings towards you being here and being kind of left behind. And, like, convince me that you're strong-willed enough to be able to sit back and watch things unfold until the moment that you need to rise. And Zaid reluctantly says, okay, I'll do that. I'll take all of my notes and all my everything, and I'll prove to you that even if I can't be a capable physical warrior or a strong mage, my intelligence and my pattern recognition ability can put me in, like, a tactical support position that, like, basically doesn't exist, which would be, like, a warlord kind of job, which is what he would essentially be if he survived. And he has, like, this whole thing written out about this is his job and this is what he's always thought he could do and stuff. And it's like, basically, the Battle of Garuda happens after, you know, Husai and the whole party have been, like, going around gathering information and stuff. So this is, like, you know, a month and a half later. And Husai's always been thinking in his head at this point, he's like, maybe I should have just let Zaid come with us, right? So he's kind of regretting it. But he's like, maybe this will make him a stronger person, and, you know, won't have to deal with it. While he's dealing with the Viceroy this entire time. That's kind of makes him think about it, because he's like, man, the Viceroy is, like, fucked. Maybe even Zaid, having Zaid here, because the Viceroy and Zaid got along, like, so fucking well, because Husai is going to let Zaid come to Ifrit to meet up with Gluttony and have, like, the first initial meeting to be like, okay, this is, like, your inauguration into what the start of a quest, like a great adventure would be. And then you have to basically be the one to sit back, because that's what Husai's had to do this entire time. So it's like, if you can't do it as my disciple and I've been doing it, then you haven't proven yourself as a disciple. That's kind of the idea. And so it's all Husai forcing Zaid to stay behind. And after that month and a half, after the attack on Garuda, when news gets back to the tree, and the riots start happening, and they come to burn down the Adventurers Guild. And Zaid's the only one there. And he basically fights off, like, 300 or 400 people, and I want it to be, like, yes. Yes. It'd be exactly like this. Oh, is that just the end? Where's the whole thing? Yeah, okay, here we go. So it'd be like, just imagine, like, everyone's coming up in, like, riot form with their fucking shenanigans with their brooms and shit, because these aren't adventurers, these are just normal citizens. Like, they have, like, barely stolen weapons and, like, fucking brooms and tools and shit, and Zaid's like, you're not getting in here. And he's standing at the door. He, like, pushes the doors open and walks out. And he's like, I'll drop all of you. And of course there's like the crazy fanatic guy who's also infected by Anna, but nobody knows. And Zaid's like 27, 28, so he's like 16 in like normal like years. But he is just trained so fucking hard. He's like that anime character that's always been in the background, like fucking Rock Lee, where he's like, I've been so underrated and no one's accepted my skill. I finally get to prove myself. And then there's like the crazy fanatics coming after him and shit. And how it's gonna be, because you don't witness this actually happening. This is like when the crew returns, and this is like the doubling down on the Order 66 moment, where it's like it was building up to this point where it's like, okay, there might be a war and we're gonna have a battle, but it's like they're standing on the side of like the high ground, the city, and the intelligence and the backup of like the technology and skill level of adventurers versus beastmen. Like, people standing guard on the walls of Garuda are thinking to themselves, this is going to be a slaughter for the other side. And then what comes down upon them, they cannot even imagine. And Garuda is taken. And they all, like, as Sid arrives with backup in the airships, Husai's like, we lost. Like, this is fucking retreat. Thank God you showed up when you did, or we may have all died. And they piece the fuck out. Well, like, another line holds back Fafnir, essentially, while Sid and everyone else escapes on the airship. And so they're like, land in Ifrit, and everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, word has already gotten back through comm pearls, right? That's like their telephones, their instant communication, that Garuda has fallen, Fafnir is back, and the Beastman Wars are on. And then they get to Ifrit, and everyone's like, oh shit, dude, you have no idea what the fuck happened. There was rioting and everything in the tree. We're not allowed to go back into the tree. And Husai's like, what the fuck do you mean? And he's like, the monarch kicked all the adventurers out of the tree. Like, we're exiles now. And Husai's like, what? Fuck this? So he takes everyone back into the tree and the Viceroy's there too. And he's thinking like, wait, what the fuck? Well, I mean, we got the Viceroy and the leader of the adventurers killed. If fucking anybody, they're the two that could go in the tree. So they go in alone. Just to, like, not cause any problems, right? Maybe Varius goes with them. I don't know. But it's like they get to, like, the gates of the Adventurers Guild, and it's just like a trail of blood leading up to the Adventurers Guild. And then it's Zaid, and he's literally crucified with, like, the spread eagle thing, where it's like, basically his back is ripped open, his lungs are spread out, and his ribs are ripped back to make it look like he has wings. Just like the most brutal fucking death possible, right? And Husai's just like staring at this like, what the fuck is going on? And he's just like completely emotionally breaking down. And he's like, this is all my fault. I was the one who told Zaid to stay. And then, of course, he gets like the reenactment of basically like someone telling him, like, or people telling him, like, what the fuck happened with Zaid. Yeah, the story of how he fought like 400 or 500 people, basically barehanded, and he didn't injure or kill anyone. He just knocked people out, just like Thor does. And it's like, he could have killed them all, and he didn't. But then, of course, you know, then there's the next part, which is like, him actually dying, right? Because he does get completely fucking overwhelmed eventually. And then they literally, like, drag him through the streets and shit. So it's like, okay, so Husai tells Zaid to stay behind. Zaid refuses and tries multiple times to get into the caravan. Sai makes a deal with Zaid that if he can wait this out like Husai always does, he can prove he is maturing. Zaid goes to collect all of his notes and build the best case he can on paper for his worth, and describes his job as warlord. The tacticianer whatever. Tactician of the battlefield. Sai goes on adventure. Eventually, Garuda is attacked. Sai and party flee in defeat. Monarch banishes adventurers. Zaid is killed in Guild Hall. Husai, upon seeing Zaid, has fallen from grace moment for a few chapters before it was picked back up by Varius. Play, which denotes Zaid's bravery. So Varius creates a play basically to immortalize Zaid. Sai finds Zaid's hidden notes and through his discoveries finds out who the Warriors of Light are. Okay, so that's like super important. Zaid's death is a huge boon to the story. Chapter event lists. Just put it in ideas. The death of Zaid. Okay. And then we move on to the main one, which is the banquet. So what we wanted to do is set up scenes. So we're going to work on that first. But we have... I don't even want to spoil the idea. We're just not even going to describe it. And we're just going to write it during the speed running. And you guys will just have to see what the final product is. It's going to be fantastic. Okay, we can turn this back on. Oh, wait, no, we can't, because we have these to go through. Right. Okay, here we go. So, mastering scene structure. This is our biggest thing, is like, hold on, I have something somewhere with some notes that I had that we were going to do as well. So let's bring this up and let's go scene construction notes. What did we get here? Okay, so we have senses. Sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. How many of those are relevant to the scene? Point of view. Narrator. Important for scene progression. Character. What is important to that character? Characters. What is important to scene progression? Not character based. Something like that. And then focus on a centerpiece and slowly zoom out, describing the used parts of the scene. So instance, like, if no one goes near the table, then there's no point to describe the table, right? If there's no one goes near the wall, there's no reason to describe the wall. If the wall isn't part, like, if it has no part in the scene, there's no point in describing it. Because that's just over-describing things. Unless you're re-entering a room continuously over and over again. Like, for instance, like, in the guild hall, going to, like, the main guild in Ifrit is going to be, like, a repeat thing over and over and over again, right? But then eventually, it's going to get to the point where most of the areas are repeat areas that we're just going back to once we've established most of the areas. Because it's like that New Game Plus function after Garuda Falls, where most of the general areas you've been to are now, like, higher level and more, like, dangerous, essentially, because like beastmen are going to be roaming there now. They're actually in part. You can't go back to the tree, so anyone who goes inside the tree, which will happen later when they go to fight the monarch, is all basically fighting against human shields, which would be the civilians, and they don't want to hurt the civilians. So in my head, there are massive gaps that aren't part of the scene, essentially. So when we get to those scenes, we'll have to figure out what is important and what isn't, and maybe structure it, and then we can find out what the holes are. But that's going to be a little bit later down when we start doing art and actually doing like location settings and stuff like that and drafts, because that'll give us more emphasis on like how we can progress each thing and why they're there. Yeah.
Most well-written scenes can be broken down into one of two types. Today I'm going to explain what those two types are and how you can properly structure them.
Sounds good, bro. Let's do this.
What's up, guys? My name's Brandon McNulty. I'm a writer. I'm the author of Bad Parts, and welcome to my writing channel. As I mentioned in the intro, today we're going to be talking about the two main types of scenes. And these are the types of scenes you will see in pretty much all of fiction. They are everywhere. But for whatever reason, these aren't often taught to writers, at any stage of their career. It's something that you kind of have to hope you learn somewhere along the way. Today I want to be that person who passes along the information to you. Hopefully we'll walk you out the door with a great understanding of how to structure scenes and how to take this information instantly into your own work and apply it there. Now, as far as
If I do write a story about palicos, should I start with the palico is a mysterious blend of feline and humanoid traits, but they are much more than that. Excuse me. Like, I really like that, but it depends on the direction that you want to go. For me, I really like that, but that's not the way that I write. But that's just me. But the fact that I really like that, and I'm like, oh, the only reason I wouldn't write that is because I don't like to put things directly in front of people. I like them to be, like, you get 3 pages through before you find out that the palico's a cat. Like, that's generally how I write. Like, if it wasn't for the opening scene and Torg being an important character and realization for Husai, there would be no racial descriptions in the first, thing. So you wouldn't even know what species anyone was, really. And then by the time you get to the second chapter and it starts explaining the different races and how politics work and stuff, and then you're like, oh, okay, well this is weird. There's octopi, avians, and insectoids? Something like the palico is much more than meets the eye. Like, I like that. That's got a nice spin to it.
As the types of scenes, as I mentioned, there are 2 of them. The first type of scene is the goal-oriented scene. This is one where a character has a goal, they face conflict as they're trying to achieve that goal, and then the scene ends in disaster because we can't have our characters getting what they want.
Exactly. That is the Zaid scene to a fucking T.
In order to keep the readers going. But when you're looking at a goal-oriented scene, these are typically, ones where you start off with a character, they have a clear set motive, a specific motive in mind. We understand that they want something, that is their goal. And as they're pursuing their goal, they face conflict, they face obstacles. If we don't have obstacles, it's boring. You have to have something getting in the way of that character.
169%.
So once you have your goal, they face conflict, they fight through that conflict, but in the end, it finally breaks down and it ends in disaster. Goal, conflict, disaster. That is the recipe for a goal-oriented scene. Always find a way to end it on disaster or something going not as planned. Because if it ends in disaster, then it's easier to go toward the reaction scene. Because reaction scenes are going to be, reliant upon there being something going wrong. Because the way a reaction scene works, this also breaks down into 3 steps. And it breaks down into
123%.
an emotional reaction
I'm
that the
sorry.
character has,
I'm warmed up
response to the
today.
previous disaster. So how do they feel about
I
what
haven't written
happened?
it a bit.
Is it bothering them? Does it bring them down? Does it crush their spirits? Is the audience able to empathize with them? That is so important. They should be able to empathize with them, and
Yeah, because this is an exact transitioning scene. So it's like the conflict and the disaster. So the character has a goal. He's going to seek out what actually happened inside of the tree. He gets to the tree and he sees Zaid hanging on the wall with the blood streak like he's fucking been dragged across the ground. And then the conflict is, oh my god, I'm the one who put him in the position. If he had just come with me, he wouldn't be dead. And then the next scene after that is like the Viceroy and Varius like solemnly walking up to him and like putting their hands on his shoulder and just having that like solemn moment of like, there are no words for such a thing. And they just sit there in solemn, and then they just decide they're not even going to confront the monarch about this. They're just going to leave the tree. And this is the decision that like cuts everything off. Where Husai is now no longer on anyone's side. He's no longer the master of the guild. He is a weeping father looking for revenge. And this is how his character will be for about 2 chapters. Until Gluttony and Varius snap him out of it with their plan to create the play to immortalize Zaid. Is there a character limit for Discord message? Yes, there is, but then you just hit enter and then type another message. So, like, if I'm putting in something that's too long, I just type it in chunks. Like, take paragraph by paragraph and just, like, put it in. When I do make the story, I'll send it to you, and you can put it on the server. Alright, sounds good. Hell yeah, dude. But yeah, those 2 scenes go, like, hand in hand. So, it's because, like, my main thing is not necessarily learning, it's putting my knowledge to the test. It's like, am I up to par? Because at first I was like, okay, what do they mean by 2 different kinds of scenes? And I'm like, oh, this is what they mean by 2 different kinds of scenes. I can put words to it now, because that's exactly how I imagine it in my head. I just never had the words to put, this is the goal-oriented conflict scene, and this is a reactionary decision scene. Even though that's literally how you bounce the scenes back and forth in order to basically juggle and progress the story. And that's basically how I've, like, structured the outline for it. I'm gonna find an app on my phone where I can draft. Ooh, sounds fun. Alright, sounds good, man. Have fun.
feel something for the character who is hurting right here. Now, after they've, reacted emotionally, then they move on into the dilemma. And the dilemma is where the character is sorting through their options, trying to figure out what to do next. And their options should not be good ones. There shouldn't be, like, an obvious choice, like, oh, we could just do this.
Okay, so his options are, we go and confront the monarch and possibly start a civil fucking war between the Adventurers Guild and the Tree. And we're already in the middle of a war with the Beastmen. So we could create a civil war in the middle of a war. We can, like, diplomacy confront the monarch about it and hope that nothing goes wrong. And hope that we're not the next ones on that fucking wall. So there's guaranteed fight. There's try and, like, salvage the situation, which is, like, a 0% possibility. And then you're back to fighting. Or you leave. And you say, because there's 2 options to leave. So there's 2 options to stay and 2 options to leave. 2 options to stay are diplomacy and fight. The 2 options to leave are to leave and quit. which is exactly what he decides to do, is to leave and quit and say, fuck this. If they're not going to be on our side, like, what the fuck is going on? So this is kind of a frustrating moment for everyone in the party where they're like, Husai, what the fuck happened to you, man? You're a great leader. You're an amazing person. Like, you have this strength and courage and motivation to you. You just instill people with hope and pride in their actions. And you take situations like this and you mold them into something that makes you a better person. And, like, they're basically going through all this stuff with Husai, and he's just like, he doesn't know what to do. And then, so first, fight, can't do that. Diplomacy probably won't work. We go and fight the Beastman War. And then we come back and deal with this. So shove it all to the side and be like, okay, go fight the war. And he's like, I'm not going to be able to be a commander. I'm not going to be able to rule in this war, knowing in the back of my mind that I have no home to go back to. I'm not fighting for any cause. And it's like they have to remind him what he's fighting for, which is the adventurers, which is the people, Zaid. And so Gluttony and Varius' idea is to create this play to immortalize Zaid. And this uplifts Husai, and he begins to remember, like, what would Zaid do? Zaid's looking down on him, ashamed right now. And he has this epiphany moment of, like, put your big pants back on, daddy, and prove to everyone that there's something going on here. That this isn't a natural course of events. There has to be something in the background pushing things in this direction for some reason. And I really, really want to press that these conspiracies that have kind of been, like, issued to throughout, like, the political versions of, like, the chapters, political chapters, are starting to give ground and merit now. Where you're starting to think as the reader, like, are these guys right? Like, should they just get rid of the Adventurers Guild? Like, is going back into the tree and sacrificing everything on the outside just the fucking right thing to do? Just to appease the Beastmen and get them off of our backs? Like, there's a huge, like, moral dilemma towards that, where the reader's like, I can understand why the fanatics are doing what they're doing, or the people are following the fanatics, but the fanatics are, like, taking it too far. Like, the idea of, you know, encouraging random people that just have the bad way of it because they're dumb enough to be like, fuck. I guess I'll go with that guy because he seems to have the majority idea. So, like, everything I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, how do these scenes fit in? Do I have anything that doesn't fall into this category? And it's like, nope, I think we're fucking nailed it.
This now. No, there should be difficult choices here to make. Like, you know, do I choose the terrible option or the other terrible option? I mean, basically the character should reason through this, figure out how do I move forward, and then finally they make their decision. And when they make their decision, they are pursuing a new goal, or maybe they're pursuing a previous goal in a different way. And as you can imagine, once they've made their decision, then we go back to a goal-oriented scene. We go goal, conflict, disaster. Disaster happens. We go back to the reaction-oriented scene. Reaction, dilemma, decision. So, I mean, that's the easiest way to put it down. You have two types of scenes with three structural beats that you need to hit. Goal, conflict, disaster, reaction, dilemma, decision. If I were you, I would recommend writing down those 6 points, maybe just write them on a post-it note, keep it near your writing desk, maybe stick it to your computer monitor, whatever it is. Whenever you're working on scenes and you're unsure if you're doing things right, just refer to that. Just look down, glance down at it. When I first learned about structuring out scenes like this, it was hard to remember the steps. It's like, oh, I got these 6 things I got to remember. The goal, the reaction, what's going on. Just write them down. Trust me, if you keep it handy at your desk, it'll come more naturally to you. The terrible option works. This specific motive.
Goal, conflict, disaster. So, scene types. One. Goal, conflict, disaster. 2. Reaction, dilemma, decision. So this is for what is the structure. So this is structure. This is content. So the difference between structure and content. Structure is the flow. Content is the what, I guess. So this is the how, this is the what.
Is it bothering them? Disaster happens, we go back. Goal, conflict. Just write them down more sense. They will follow a more logical path, and your readers will enjoy them more. Now, as for an example, let's take a look at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is, of course, the first Indiana Jones movie. And if you've ever seen the movie, you know that it opens up with a goal-oriented scene. Indiana Jones, right at the start, he wants something specific. He wants the golden idol, and he has to get it from the tomb. But it's not easy because there's tons of conflict getting in the way, tons of obstacles. Everything from his partners betraying him, to tarantulas crawling all over him, to arrows being fired at him, to the tomb collapsing over him and a boulder rolling after him. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong for Indiana Jones. And toward the end of the scene, he does manage to get the idol and escape the tomb. But that's when disaster strikes. His rival Belloc ends up taking the golden idol off him, and Indy is now surrounded by a bunch of Jovitos who want to kill him, and he has to run for his life in order to escape. Now, if you remember, the scene that follows is the one that takes place at the university where Indy teaches, and this is a reaction scene. The reaction phase of the scene starts when he's talking to Marcus Brody, and Indy says, "I had it, Marcus," and then he starts talking about how he wants to get it back. This is Indy going through the emotions that follow his disaster in the prior scene. Then Indy faces the dilemma. He's thinking about how he can get it back. He knows where it'll probably be sold to. He wants to go and buy it off the merchant who gets it. But this is where Marcus brings up the fact that people from Army intelligence want to talk to Indy about something. So Indy's dilemma, it's not a high stakes dilemma, but it's do I go after the idol or do I talk to these people from the Army? And ultimately he decides to talk to the people from the Army, and this is where the story gets really set in motion. So these first 2 scenes are a great example of how you can open up with a goal scene and follow it up with a reaction scene. And this is something you should be striving for in your own work. And if you start doing this, if you include both scenes in your story, your readers will appreciate it. One more thing I want to throw out there before I wrap up today's video. If you're interested in learning more about the 2 different types of scenes, I can recommend the book Techniques of the Selling Writer by Dwight Swain. It's an older writing guide. It's from the 60s.
All right. So, let's see here. So that's the how and the why. Now is the what.
Setting the scene is kind of like moving pieces into position in a game of chess before you execute a plan. Checkmate. You could almost say setting the scene is complicated. We immediately jump to describing the environment, the time and place, but setting the scene is so much more than that. And to understand how, we're going to take a look at a ton of stories from a ton of different genres and a bunch of different writers and styles to show you how you can
discombobulate
your readers to set up that king and knock them down. We're going to start with one of the perhaps most famous scenes ever, the Red Wedding.
I fucking love this channel. you do great. Shit.
Part 1. Moving pieces into position. The drums were pounding, 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 and her head with them. Pipes wailed and flutes trilled from the musicians' gallery at the foot of the...
Okay, so let's take this context and let's place it into my book. Beginning of the book. Husai finds the pearl. So investigating the pearl is his goal. When he sees Torg, that's the conflict. Because he's like, oh, what the fuck? Okay. What's going on? And then disaster. They're succeeding at the quest. And he's like, well, what? How? How are they succeeding? So he's thinking to himself. And then it's like, well, there has to be a point where they failed. Or has this been hidden the entire time? So now he's gone from that conflict of like, it's very messy. I'll have to think about it more. But it's definitely something we can work on.
Hall. Fiddles screeched, horns blew, the skins skirled in a lively tune, but the drumming drove them all. The sounds echoed off the rafters while the guests ate, drank, and shouted at one another below. Walter Frey must be deaf as a stone to call this music. Catelyn sipped a cup of wine and watched Jingle Bell prance to the sounds of Alisan. At least she thought it was meant to be Alisan. With these players, it might as easily have been the Bear and the Maiden Fair. Most of the heat came off the bodies of the wedding guests, jammed in so thick along the benches that every man who tried to lift his cup poked his neighbour in the ribs. If you don't know about the Red Wedding, well, first, how? And secondly, I'm gonna spoil it for you, unless you click away from this video in 3, 2, 1. Alright. The Red Wedding is a famous scene where a king and all his army are massacred at a wedding dinner by supposed allies. And look at how Martin writes this. He describes the setting, the musicians' gallery, the rafters, a place to dance, the crammed benches, but he's not only doing that. Look at the language being used here. Wailing, trilling, screeching, skirling. These are the sounds of people dying. The last line about the heat of the bodies jabbing people in the ribs, all of this could be applied to a battle scene, to a massacre. The song, Alisan, that's mentioned in the passage, is sad, but it's being played as if it's a joyous, upbeat tune, to sound celebratory and happy, much like a wedding which is secretly about to become a massacre. All of this is foreshadowing the events of the scene to come, as well as establishing an atmosphere for it. It's oppressive, it's crowded, it's uncomfortable. Martin's writing introduces the idea of death and horror without explicitly telling us, creating that uncomfortable atmosphere which sets us up for the massacre to come. And these are just two of the things you can do while setting the scene outside of giving us environmental description. Except Martin did something else really clever here, which you might have noticed when you first read this passage if you've read the books. The wording here for the drums, the pounding, pounding, and pounding, it comes back later in the scene. The pounding drums sets the scene as part of a musical ensemble, but they return as drums of war, whilst Catelyn is literally pressing a knife to someone's throat. This is what we can call linguistic Chekhov's gun, where language you use while setting the scene returns in your prose later on with greater or a different meaning, to make that twist or that reveal, that move, that plan that you execute hit harder. These are your bishops, your poetic pieces you bring in earlier on, only to bring back later with effect. In this way, setting the scene isn't just describing the setting or foreshadowing, but choosing what language, metaphor, simile, or description might elevate the scene to come. A cracked altar is just an altar until the bride leaves the ceremony in tears. And suddenly, a cracked altar is a lot more than that. Like how you might only reveal why you moved a certain piece into position once you execute your plan, how you set the scene might only reveal its full meaning once you carry out the rest of the scene. I really love having these writing discussions, and I'm loving this chess metaphor in case you haven't noticed. I hope this makes the idea of setting the scene a bit more interesting, dynamic, but also kind of easier and applicable to your writing. That's what I try to do in these videos. It's actually why I've written 3 whole books on it, and On Writing and World Building Volume 3 is the latest one of those out now. Almost 100,000 copies have been sold of this series so far. I can't even begin to explain how incredible that is for me. And Volume 3 is the biggest and most in-depth and most exclusive in the series so far, with a cover voted for by you guys. These books take all of the writing and world-building discussions, like the one that we're having in this video, and put them into these more easily accessible, referenceable books with a ton more notes and depth than we are able to get into in the videos. And in fact, this particular one has about 30,000 more words worth of analysis than I was able to do here. And you might be wondering, do I have to have read volumes 1 and 2 to read volume 3? And no, not at all. Each book stands entirely on its own. Of course, they do work together. They all cover their own topics, though. I'm so excited to share this one with you. This is easily the best book yet. I am so happy with it. And if you find videos like these today helpful, then this is the next step. This is what I am going to point you towards. The links are down below. Thank you so much to the people who have already got it. It's an amazing thing to be able to share this with you. And you can get all 3 pretty cheaply together. Volume 3 in particular covers things like character descriptions, subtext and dialogue, show, don't tell, plot armor, environmental descriptions like we reference in this video, anti-heroes, we're building mountains and cities and towns, all sorts of incredible stuff. As said, links down below. Let's get on to more of the writing stuff. Part 2.
Discombobulate.
Now, we've talked about foreshadowing and linguistic Chekhov's gun, but there are other pieces that you might want to move into position. You've got character and tension and relationship and emotion, and there's really no better writer to explore this than Gillian Flynn with her incredible book, Sharp Objects. My mother's massive house is at the southernmost point of Wind Gap, the wealthy section, if you can count approximately 3 square blocks of a town as a section. She lives in, as I once did too, an elaborate Victorian replete with a widow's walk. The Victorians, especially southern Victorians, needed a lot of room to stray away from each other, to duck tuberculosis and flu, to avoid rapacious lust, to wall themselves away from sticky emotions. Extra space is always good. When I was a child, I always walked the stairs up, ran the driveway down. I assumed the cigar-thin rail was on the left side going up because I'm left-handed, and someone thought I might like that. Odd to think I had ever indulged in such presumptions. I parked at the bottom, so as to seem less intrusive. Wet with sweat, by the time I hit the top, I smelled, as my mother would say, ripe. Gillian Flynn is just one of my favorite authors ever. She has this deeply psychological writing. She gets into people's minds, into her characters' brains in ways that other authors don't. And that really comes out in how she sets a scene, like this. Lines like, Victorians needed a lot of room to stray away from each other, or parking to seem less intrusive. They speak to the relationship she has with her mother, that distance core to the tension of the scene to come. Flynn could have described her relationship with the family cat, but the scene isn't about that. It's about her mother. The line about how she used to think the rail was on the left because of her speaks to the mindset and emotional state of our character. She used to believe she belonged in this place, but no longer. All of this sets the stage for the scene to come. This is Flynn moving those pieces into position, pieces which are relevant to the scene, which will make the scene, the tension, the relationship as it plays out, hit better and hit harder. when she captures this feeling of being isolated from her old home, it's because that feeling is critical to the scene to come. A scene will often be about a goal, or a conflict, or a decision, or an emotional reaction, or a dilemma. And setting the scene is about giving us the context to make that mean something. Even before we meet the mother, even before the conflict starts, even before a line of dialogue is uttered, we are already on edge from how Flynn sets her scene. She grounds us in the mindset of her character so well, who is nervous and on edge and doesn't really know what to expect, and so she's got all of these pieces moved into position so that she can discombobulate. I can't wait for all the comments telling me about the abysmal and illegal moves I'm technically making if you look too closely at the chessboard. But we can go deeper. I want to show you a piece from a short story called The Life and Death of Lucia's Library and ask what you think this scene is going to be about. Lucia Vargas knew death before she knew how to walk. Death lived in a book at the top of their family library on the second floor, its cover of pressed feathers plucked from the loose scraps of her cloak, and its spine sealed with candle wax left in her footsteps. It had always kept her close to the family. Inside, a Nephilim tree grew from page to page, each branch a different member of Lucia's family, going back countless generations. As a child, she always feared it would run out of pages, but Ma assured her it never had, never would, never could. Death don't run out, and neither do we, she said. If you guess this scene involves someone dying...
Yeah, that's
you'd be
a
right.
funeral.
Lucia's
A funeral.
grandmother is found in her bed, mouth agape, shoes covered in drool and puke. And this is actually one of my stories. And I want to show you which pieces I was moving into position and why, and let me know what you picked up on. We immediately get Lucia's complex and intimate relationship with death, while the scene itself is about those different relationships others in her family can have with death. They're obsessed with it or fearful of it, running from it. The line, "death don't run out," brings in that tension. It is always coming for them, and they learn to live with it. The book itself is critical to the scene because it's how Lucia discovers her grandmother is dead. She sees that branch taper off in the book. I wanted to introduce all these pieces so that when the grandmother dies, we're left with this sense of inevitability that kind of numbs the loss and sets up the story to come where many more people will die. And yet Lucia lives through it. And even though her ma assures her, neither do we very quickly see this family is dwindling. The story as a whole is about the different ways we engage with death, and all of this is way more important than the fact that there's a library, which would be setting the scene, giving us the setting. But it's not what the scene's really about, and there are two parts to this, right? There's the setting and the scene. And if you want to read more of this story, then do go get my book, A Catalogue for the End of Humanity, which, as I say on the back, these are stories about death, endings, and finding hope somewhere in between. This is the most personal thing that I have ever written, and I'd love to share it with you. It's got a ton of my professionally published fiction, which I'm really proud of, but also a ton of original exclusive stories like The Life and Death of Lucia's Library. Writing is who I am on a core level, and I can finally share this with you. This is also the most direct way that you can actually support me personally. I put everything I talk about in these videos into practice in my own writing, and that is why I am so confident in this book. Again, links down below. Thank you everybody who gets my books, but especially this one, because this is just so personal to me. Another way to imagine scenes is as shifts in emotions or belief. Like, Catelyn Stark begins one way and ends up another. In this case, bleeding out and extremely sad her son is dead, but you're setting the scene by establishing where that change is going to come from, moving that piece in. Hence why Flynn writes so much about that family dynamic in Sharp Objects. The character starts the scene nervous, and she ends up leaving it tired and frustrated with her family. A character might have a lot of emotions about a lot of different things, but you've got to be conscious of bringing the right emotions to the forefront of the reader's mind to set them up for where that shift is going to come from. But let's talk about a more tangible thing. Part 3. Chekhov's actual gun. On a more structural level, scene setting includes establishing important set pieces, objects, environmental obstacles which will become relevant later in the scene. In The Red Wedding, it's important to establish the rafters because that's where the massacre comes from. In The Phantom of the Opera, they very much establish the giant chandelier because later on it falls down. If doors suddenly start appearing where the reader didn't know they were and the characters can escape through them, or they end up using conveniently placed guns on the walls, it can feel a little too much like a wizard did it. You want to introduce or at least imply things which would be unexpected in your setting, or at least important for how the scene will play out, especially if characters benefit from it. It matters less if they're put at disadvantage because a sudden trap appears, but if they're in a classroom, we probably expect chairs and windows, right? But if they're in a bank vault, tell us about the weird crack in the wall that they might be able to exploit later. And this applies more broadly, by the way, to the tension, character, relationships, and emotions which are going to come up in the scene later on. As said, characters are feeling a lot of different stuff in any given scene, but only some of it's going to be relevant to this particular scene, and they're the pieces that you're probably going to want to move into position more. Like how Flynn focuses on that family dynamic, or when Martin is writing about Catelyn's emotional state at the start of the scene, you get the impression she's a little bit apart from the ceremony and festivities that are going on. She's not quite as absorbed in the affairs of the wedding as others. And that does set up how she eventually notices the massacre right before it's about to happen. She recognizes the Rains of Castamere, which is the signal for the massacre. Of course, I'm not saying you want to telegraph what's going to happen in your scene. This is something to keep in mind when editing, perhaps. Am I building up to the point of the scene? Is my introspection and my focus in the right place? Could the tension or pacing be elevated by setting the scene through the lens of a different relationship or perspective or emotion? All of this is about keeping the intent of the scene in mind when you're setting it. Just like moving pieces throughout the board is going to change where the conflict is happening, where will this scene guide the narrative? Where will it shift the relationship that the reader has with the story? So that's one way of thinking about your scene. But another one is part 4, questions and answers. You are asking questions when you set the scene. Will this happen? What will happen if X? Will they manage to Y? And you give answers in playing the scene out. For an example, let's take a look at this passage from Rebecca Campbell's An Important Failure. A story about a guy who spends much of his life working on a violin for a woman he has known since she was a little girl. Even from his bed, even on oxygen, Eddie was critical when Mason brought it upstairs, examining it with an eyeglass until he conceded the sound was as fine, in its own way, as any number of other violins he'd seen. Finer even than the composites he'd started to use for his own work, when he could work. Chlorine and carbon fiber. You made something, kid. It had been a long time since anyone called him kid, even Eddie. Does it have a name? Eddie asked. Does it need one? If it had to be named, it should have been something elegant and sonorous. This passage is given at the beginning of the scene, before we actually meet the woman that he's gonna give the violin to, which is the intention of the scene. This is him giving this thing that he's been working on for his entire life. And in setting the scene, Campbell introduces a blatant question. Does the violin have a name? And in the scene, it gets one. Nepenthe. Campbell asks this question in setting the scene and answers it. But this question is also symbolically important. Nepenthe was a fictional medicine for sorrow, a drug of forgetfulness, and by this point in the story, the woman has kind of forgotten the joy that playing the violin ever brought her when she was younger. But scene-setting questions are rarely so literal. I've been really enjoying Savannah Brown's The Things We Don't See, where we get this little line of introspection when describing the environment of this small town island. Beside me, there's a lighthouse, a colossal thing. Floating towards it happens naturally, a moth drawn to the flame, and I want to go in. This line immediately begs the question, what's in the lighthouse? I want to know. You want to go in? I want to go in. And the conflict of this scene is that a police officer comes along and warns her to stay away and takes her away from the lighthouse. And you kind of, go, no, I want to go in. you know that you'll return there. Because more importantly, this establishes the importance of the lighthouse in the story more broadly. Too often, we get caught up in just describing stuff, things that are just there. Characters arrive in a place and we give them a big laundry list of stuff which happens to be around them. And then we go on and just do the scene of what happens there. But that's kind of like moving random pieces into position and then trying to execute a plan with whatever pieces we happen to have, right? It doesn't work, it's a scatter shot. I can't take down the king with these random pieces. It might tell us where we are, but it doesn't lay a strong foundation for the plan and scene to come. What all of these stories have in common is that they're very conscious of the story that they're trying to tell within the scene that they're setting. However, you've also got to think about the place of the one, scene, and two, elements inside the scene within the broader narrative as a whole. Because sometimes there are elements which might not be hugely relevant to the actual scene at hand, but are going to be relevant to later scenes later on. And to explain what I mean, we're going to look at the opening scenes to Brandon Sanderson's recent book, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Yumi had always considered the appearance of the Daystar to be encouraging, an omen of fortune. It seemed extra bright today, glowing a soft blue on the western horizon as the sun rose in the east, a powerful sign, if you believed such things. The Daystar itself isn't actually that important for the scene at hand. It's not the subject of tension or a relationship or the intention of the scene really, but the point of this book is how it parallels the stories of two characters. They sort of end up swapping lives, sort of Your Name style, if you've seen that. And in the first chapter of the other character, we also get this. The star was particularly bright when the Nightmare Painter started his rounds. The star. Singular. No, not a sun, just one star. A bullet hole in the midnight sky. Bleeding pale light. Again, it's not all that important for the scene at hand, but the wider parallel it creates between these two characters and their important differences are central to the overall story. Just in this little flash, we can see how they think differently about the star. Yumi sees it as a sign of hope. Painter describes it with imagery of death, a bullet hole bleeding. Right from the start, we get the impression that these two are on the same journey in a sense. They're facing the same problem, they see the same things, though in different ways. And it's also an important set piece for the story, kind of like the chandelier in Phantom of the Opera. It will come back later. You're going to have a lot of symbols in your story which appear in one scene, but don't necessarily become relevant till a lot later on. So spending words on them in that case when you're setting the scene is still worth it. This also applies, by the way, to that linguistic Chekhov's gun we spoke about before.
One thing I will say for just thinking about the story that we're going to write later, it's like, this is like the perfect description of what I can think of to set up the scene that I need. And I have a list of like relevance, right? So it's like, if we're looking at the scene and if it's a goal, conflict, disaster, right? If we're following that, is the sight important? Not really. Sound is important. Smell is important. Touch is important, and taste is important. But the sight of things isn't actually important. In fact, it's negative importance, because that's the reveal. You don't get to see until you see, and then you're like, oh, fuck! That's kind of the idea. And as the view from, like, the narrator, focus on the centerpiece. And then from there, we just build it out. So I have the entire idea of basically completely formed in my head over it. And it's just like ticking off boxes. And so far, we haven't added anything to the list. So I'd say we're doing pretty good for structure and like what we want. Because it's like, what's important for the scene progression, for instance. That's what we're looking for.
Language which you introduce at one point to become more relevant, more meaningful, different later on, even if it's not in this scene. And this is, by the way, more common at the start of books, where you're introducing the characters and establishing the world a bit more, like with Yumi here. But it applies where any given scene has an important, especially symbolic role to play.
And that's literally what the calm sphere is at the beginning. The book on the chessboard is stressing me out. Eggy Mayo 69, welcome, welcome. Which book? Oh, you mean because he has it placed on the chessboard?
The Yumi here, but it applies where any given scene has an important, especially symbolic role to play in the...
But yeah, that's what the calm sphere is, what initiates the entire story. So Husai's sitting in his office, and it's like it fucking appears out of nowhere. Captain Cookchair, welcome, welcome. How's it going? How are you guys? Welcome to the stream. We are undergoing an investigation to see how good my ability on a outline level is for cut chair at your cervix. Fuck yeah, dude. I will I'll do a backflip for that. There we go. Backflips! Everyone do a backflip! Oh, I did it too fast. There we go. Backflips!
the wider story, feeding into those connections to other events, characters, and stories, which knits the whole...
Yeah, you can't do it on Twitch, I'm sorry.
That in Yumi and the Nightmare
It doesn't
Painter.
work.
The scene setting there is
I need
about
to be
the
affiliate
parallel in
to
the
get
narrative
emotes.
and about the individual scene that
It
we
works on
actually see
Kick,
that
though.
in. Now you're probably wondering, we're talking about setting the scene. Why aren't we talking about environment?
No worries, it's all good, don't worry about it. My bot's spamming all the time anyway.
Scene setting is often a lot more dependent on introspection than on time and place and physical setting.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately,
we've seen that
don't have the
in
emotes on
examples
Twitch
we
yet.
discussed in the Life and Death
We're
Lucille
getting
Piper,
there, though.
In Sharp Objects, in an important failure, in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. And that's because the environment is almost always filtered through the lens of a particular character. And the introspection...
Exactly. So, like, if we look back... Character. What is important to that character, as opposed to what's important for scene progression? Thanks for Nutty Putty Nightmares. Oh, from last night, the Oompaville?
Closer to
Oh, that was great.
The story is really going to be about.
I love
Stuff that
cave
gets us
stories.
grounded in-
Actually, cave stories, this is a funny story. Cave stories are the reason I got into Mr. Ballin. And Mr. Ballin is the reason that, like, I want to do, like, short stories and stuff like that. In, like, a short story format of just, like, you know, like my It Talks Stories YouTube channel. But it's all just fictional stories that I'm writing. And today, we are writing a story called The Banquet. And this is all basically research to make sure that this scene is set perfectly.
in this world. And scene setting is
Yeah, some of them are, like, one of them's 3 minutes. You know, they go between, like, 3 minutes and 10 minutes, depending upon how long the story is. But, you know, we've got them with... Here, I'll show you. Oops, it's just 1S. So we got Arden the Philosopher, Perilous Botfly, Into Eternal Darkness, The Summit, Endless Purgatory, and Fall of the Wall. Stepmom stuck in cave. I should write that story. Spicy. Yeah, I wasn't sure because these ones are all AI generated images, and then this is just me reading it. So I wasn't sure like what the format I should
often
use
pretty
for it is.
introspective because we can sometimes presume where a scene is taking place because it might have been established
Yes, Endless Purgatory. One of my stories.
earlier on in the story, or because it's implicit in other details and doesn't really require much description.
The idea behind the story, hold on. I think it might be in this. Yeah, so the very last one there, it talks stories. And that'll open up and that'll take you to the YouTube channel that has all my stories on it. Well, not all of them, but the ones that are uploaded now. If you want to see my story list, here, I'll show you my story list. And these are just the ones on this PC. So we got our speed runs. We have mine. We have the AI ones. And then we have some other random ones here, plus like outlines and stuff like that.
However, it is still inescapable. I'm not trying to step around it. That a huge part of setting the scene is Part 6, environmental
You mean part 5?
Now, I have done not only a whole video on environmental descriptions before, but there's a whole chapter on it in this book with a ton of more notes and detail. So if you really want to dig into that quite fundamental part of writing...
Oh, I want to start writing this freaking story. We're going to set up the scene in structure as well as do the plot line.
Set it with an active character. Halfway down the trailer, Elena slips into the woods behind a fallen larch tree. Wet clusters of tissue mark it as a common detour. Steaming urine splashes against the back of her calves and pools in the moss under her runners before sinking away. I'm sorry for such a visceral description, but having your characters do something with their environment, engaging with it, sets the scene off at a pace while helping you establish the setting. The character here is interacting with specific details. They're moving through the woods, looking for somewhere to go to the bathroom. So we get the woods and the fallen trees, the tissues, the moss, before we launch into the core of the scene. And more importantly, we'll discover later on in this scene there's this strange mucus in the forest. They describe it as, quote, thick, gloopy, and wet, a star jelly. So already starting with bodily functions like this fits the theme. It introduces and seeds that idea to foreshadow what's to come. Having your character do something avoids your scene setting from feeling static, like you're putting the whole story on pause so that you can quickly describe the setting before moving on, calling it to a grinding halt. It immediately sets your character up to discover something, or to be interrupted, or to pursue something, all of which are a lot more interesting than just having a static setting. If they're in a market, describe the characters perusing the goods. If they're in a rural town, have them driving through the empty, abandoned streets full of run-down, dilapidated houses. But, and this is something a lot of people miss, an active opening to the scene isn't limited to a character physically interacting with their surrounding. It often helps, but introspection can give pace to a scene too. The examples from Flynn's writing and Brown's writing do exactly that, internalizing what they're seeing, and that internalization actually moves the story forward. It develops our expectations for the scene, our relationship with the character, with the setting. It's what I'm going to call psychological movement as opposed to physical movement in setting the scene, and it's just as important. But scene setting is also about the atmosphere, the vibes, you might say. I mean, that's what it is, right? And a lot of this is going to come down to your word choice and which details you include. Let me explain. When we spoke before about the Red Wedding feeling claustrophobic and joyless, that's the vibes, that's the atmosphere. We're meant to feel that in the scene. It's the character of the physical setting. If we return to Flynn's
just
writing,
finished Endless
she
Purgatory,
could have
that shit is
described
dope.
anything about the scenes, but she
Thanks.
deliberately chooses details.
Wait till you hear the one today. The one today is fucking good. Oh my fucking god, I'm so excited.
Huge amount of space, comparing the people to tuberculosis, the southernmost point. Her word choice is intentional. The rail is not slender, but thin. It is not a candlestick, but a cigar, a poisonous object of addiction, like this house is full of disease. The vibes of this place are all off. It might be true that there is a beautiful garden full of lively and colourful birds, a whole place full of life and wonder and colour, but narrowing in on those details when setting the scene for this house.
In Purgatory, I use complex vocabulary, but it feels purposeful.
That's because, and this is the key point, so much of environmental description isn't about just...
And that's completely
giving us
unedited,
details
random,
about
fast
the physical
story.
setting,
I just do random
but about
stories.
what the place feel.
It's more about the idea that I'm trying to get across than it is actually anything
what
else.
happens in the scene might change how you want it to feel. If your characters are about to get mugged in the middle of the night, then a foreboding and grim atmosphere sets the stage for that tension. You're going to describe the flickering neon lights and the echoes of movement in the shadows. Alternatively, you
That came
might
through, I
give
think. The idea
atmosphere
was very
to create
strong.
contrast
Well,
with
thank you
what it
very
is gonna
much.
happen.
And then I
This
really want
is
your
the
opinion on the one that I'm
description
about to write.
Catherine Patterson gives us in the scene right before she reveals Leslie is dead in Bridge to Terabithia. When they came out of the building, it was into brilliant spring sunshine. The western sun danced on the windshield, dazzling his eyes. It's hopeful. It's bright.
Sorry
it's
for
happy,
unsolicited.
it's
No,
a
I absolutely
great
love
time,
feedback.
right?
Give me
This is a nice
raw,
atmosphere to
uncut
be in,
feedback.
all to
I
make that
want
sudden reveal
all of it, because it'll
so
make
much
me a
dark.
better
You
writer.
can also use atmosphere to establish character, right? Like most people would feel unsafe in a dark alleyway at night, but you might describe them as skipping through the shadowed, narrow alleys, moonlight peeking through the clouds. And what does that give us? What atmosphere is that? This tells us that the character feels pretty at home out here, that it is not a creepy atmosphere for them. Maybe they grew up on the street, or they're a vigilante who was born in the dark, molded by it, and they did not see light until they were already a man. The atmosphere changes with the perspective character. Again, we see that in Flynn's work, right? Because they have a different experience of the place. And the other most important tip in writing environmental descriptions.
This
and
guy
this kind of
seems
applies to
alright.
most kind of
Usually
descriptions
people
and
like
most
that
of
are
writing.
corny or
I've discussed
clickbaity.
it before. You
No,
heard
man.
me
This
say it.
channel?
I'm gonna say it again. Say it with me. Specificity.
Hello, Fruit Future Me.
Details
He
are
doesn't just do
always
writing
more
and stuff. He does a
relevant
ton of
and
other
more
stuff too.
effective than
I love this channel. It's
generalizations.
great.
In my story, The Life and Death of Lucia's Library, I didn't just describe a dark
He's also a
book,
short story writer
but
as
one
well.
with a cover of pressed feathers plucked from the loose scraps of Death's cloak. Flynn doesn't just describe an old, large Victorian house, but one full of cubbyholes and nooks, curiously circuitous. Specificity allows you to craft the feeling, experience, atmosphere of a place, an object, a person that you want, right? And when each scene has a specific intention, you got to keep that in mind when you're setting it. A last thing to keep in mind is proportionate scene setting. This is a problem I've seen a lot. You know, some scenes are short and relatively inconsequential. And that's okay. You know, they don't need a lot of scene setting or environmental description.
Character interaction,
But I've seen
dialogue.
this a lot before. Imagine the characters pull up at a lakeside for one night, and the author goes on to give this beautiful, elaborate, 3-paragraph long description about how the frogs jump from lily pad to lily pad, and the
I know an
soft,
influencer
dusk
looks very
fog
similar to
scatters
you,
the last of
aesthetically
the sunlight.
speaking.
But then the characters don't do anything.
Dreamy
They
Bloody.
just kind of go to sleep.
Do you mean Levi?
To tell us where they are. It's
Want to
that
see a picture of
compulsion
them?
to describe whatever happens to be around our characters. That idea that we must know exactly what's around them at all times.
Sure, go into the Discord, drop it in the
You gotta
Discord.
make sure your reader knows, but it's again kind of like moving all
Oh, there, they
these
just
pieces
dropped, they
into
just dropped,
position,
oh, what is this?
but then doing nothing with it, executing no plan.
Where did
Of
it
course,
go?
Maybe it's just your style, and that's okay. If you want to describe the lily pads and
Wait,
the fog
new
because
window?
you like lily pads and fog, it's your book. It's up to you. But you do got to keep in mind kind of which scenes
Okay,
matter
but does he look like
and
this?
how much description.
Hold on,
scene
does he look
setting
like
really
this?
important. And also remember that your readers can imagine a lot, often better than we can ever describe it, and inviting them into the process where they're allowed to imagine and impose their kind of vision for the world on your book, that can be really useful. You can learn how to utilize that. And if you want more detail, pick up on Writing World Building Volume 3. It is really where all the goodies...
They don't look like that!
Let's bring all of this into a summary.
Oh,
Scene
love
is
it.
moving pieces into position in a game of chess. These pieces are tension, relationship, objects, character,
you,
emotion,
right?
all to make the scene hit
No.
home. Secondly, look for how you can foreshadow your scene
No.
when setting it. Consider using the linguistic Chekhov's gun to bring language used earlier on back into the scene with new or greater.
I love it though.
Thirdly,
Like I
establish
absolutely
important
love it,
objects,
but
set
no.
pieces, and other things which will give your characters an advantage in the scene. Fourthly, scenes
I'm glad to be
with
compared to
questions
someone,
and
though.
answers. What questions do you ask?
Who at
in
least
scenes?
has his
These
pictures
questions do
on
not
on Google
What often
search.
emotion does your
Pretty
scene
sure nothing
elicit?
comes up. You search my
Five,
name.
Consider the place and meaning of the scene within the overall narrative and the elements inside it, not just the events of the scene itself. 6. Scene setting is often thought of as establishing only time and place, but introspection is often a much
Which is
more
a super important part of our
7.
story, is
Consider
introspection.
setting your scene
Getting
with
inside of the
character
character's
interacting with
head.
the environment, both physically
Oh, I'm
and
so excited for
psychologically.
this.
8. Atmosphere arises from your word choice, which
Mhm.
details you focus
Mhm.
on, and how your
Mhm.
perspective character
Mhm.
interprets their surroundings. You can also use atmosphere to build towards or contrast with the events of the scene itself. And 9, the most important point, get my short story collection and my writing books at the link down below to...
I
really just
definitely want to check his shit out. But, okay. Okay, so. Where is short story? Once showed me a picture of a French guy who was a famous DJ and he really looked like me, and the guy only wore underwear and I also only wore underwear, so it's something beyond the body. It's mental. Alright then. Alright then. Okay, so here is the plot. The king is at a banquet. He is guest of honor. He is being fed endlessly. Location unknown, because we're not actually going to describe anything. Unknown, because we're not actually going to describe anything. The king. Event. The struggle for survival among temptation. Intro. King is described. So we say he's a king. You know, he's like he's where medieval plot or sci-fi opera. Medieval. It could be futuristic, but like apocalyptic futuristic. Very apocalyptic futuristic. It could also be very ritualistic past. King is described by grand clothes and a crimson crown. It is too large for his head. So the rising actions is smell. Cooking food. The sauces, spices, vegetables. Spices, vegetables, burning wood on open fires, coals, smoke, mixed with scent of food, climax. He begins to devour. Food is placed in his mouth and raised in a vat. first time you kind of get some sort of idea of what the actual physical background of like where he actually is. And you'll get kind of like an odd description at the beginning that this will kind of filter out to, because it's a foreshadowing, but it's like based upon how the language you might be able to pick out how it is, but it's just going to flow in poetically that it kind of just, I'm hoping it'll mesh. Dude, you watch the same influencers I do about plotting and writing books. This is cool. It just means they're good. That's all I'm going to have to say about that. It means they're good. If two people can come together randomly and be like, we both like that, that means they know what the fuck they're doing, so we should listen to them. Right? His mouth as he lays in a vat of... Well, we're just going to say a vat. Then the following action is the inner struggle of eating. And then the conclusion, the twist. Okay, so scene. Now we're going to add this kind of thing. So we're going to go scene, type, and we're going to go 1. And what's 1? And goal. What's the goal? The goal is to eat food. To eat food. Okay. The conflict is the inner struggle of one's self-desires. This is conflict. And then disaster is twist. I ain't want farm a book. My goals are more like cinema. I used to make movies and stuff in school and stuff. Many of them are very specific about modern plotting or script cinema. And I prefer these stuffs. Yeah, I used to do like film in school like that. And then I got into writing as I was doing film and stuff. Because I found that I had, I guess, and people told me I was good at writing. People have always told me I'm good at writing. Or I have like great ideas and stuff. And this is only a single scene. It doesn't have the reaction, dilemma, decision. I mean, it kind of can. In the twist, we can have the, as well, reaction, dilemma, and decision. It's all there. It's a hidden part that you have to pick out. You have to pick that out yourself. Oh wait, we don't need this if we have that, so we can keep that there. We can keep that there to keep this above. We know where to work from. We know exactly where we're going. We know what the goals of the scenes are. We know what we're pointing out per importance of the scene. Okay, I think we're ready to write. The Banquet. Fires. Past vast shades. Darkness. Tables and pots. Clamor of servants. And aids assembling the... I don't know if assembling is the right word to say there. The 8-man platter upon their shoulders. So they're kind of like picking the entire thing up and like setting it down on their shoulders so they're like the king can eat. The glowing fires cast vast shadows of darkness on tables and pots. The clamorous servants and aides assembling the 8-man platter upon their shoulders. Grunted as they hoisted in unison. The shadows danced bloody crimson of sapphire. No, what am I doing? Derp of the ruby engraved on the grand crown that sat on a majestic plain. Like, I don't really want to give it away, but I kind of want insight. Like, I don't know which plane to use. It's supposed to basically indicate the guy's bald. Like, the crown sitting on his head, but it's like a majestic plane because it's bald. That one I'll give away for a description. Because it kind of sounds weird if you don't know the context for it, right? So I'm just wondering about that one. Crimson. Actually, let's just. Shadows danced crimson. Gleaming off the ruby engraved upon the grand crown that sat on a majestic plain. On the majestic plain. Folds of golden woven folds of gold. What kind of fabric is it? No, just the folds of gold woven through what kind of, I guess it really doesn't matter. I just there's some, like, I use majestic and I use velvet way too much. Through the clasped ceremonial garb swirled around man as he swirled around the man as he sat down. His lofty form unabated, bobbed the clothing to and fro as if rocking. And let out a sigh. No. The man took a deep breath. Okay, so we got the king is described by grand clothes and a crimson crown. It's too large for his head, but instead of too large for his head, we're just making him bald because it's just easier to write that way. Man took a deep breath. Through sense of purpose. Disheveled. This disheveled. I want to say humanity? I don't know if that's the right word. Nero was stricken with a deep longing and a sense of purpose among his disheveled. Thoughts. Tried to focus. He knew he would need all he was worth. Sting spikes. Fortified himself. He let out his breath smooth and calm. Spiked his heart. Laid his arms to his side. He raised his head to tattered stars. No moon this night. Only lights of the fire on this broken flesh. No hunger shall go abated this night. The divines die. I'm trying to think. Like he. There's a lot of like. There's no like. It's not really supposed to describe like actual food. It's just supposed to be describing the smell of spices, like things that are like. It's the preparation. Like things are getting prepared to be cooked. The fires are stoked. The seasoning is being placed into the pots, but it's not. Whatever they're cooking isn't in it yet. So it has this almost emptiness to it. A shallowness. I wish I was a platter being clamored for. I mean, don't we all, right? The shallow depths of such smell delivered unto him delusion he suffered upon himself in this dire of circumstance. The number of pots, spices, sizzling, sauces, stewing, clamor of. So now we're gonna get like the sounds. Clamor of spoons against ladles. I don't know how to spell ladles. Okay, ladles. The clam of ladles against metal as chefs. Stirred their boughs and prepared. Okay. So let's see if I can get this all in here. So we've got glowing fires cast vast shades of darkness among the tables and pots. So we've established that there's like pots on fires and tables. So there's some sort of, you know, gathering thing. Clamor of servants and aides assembling the 8-man platter upon their shoulders grunted as they hoisted in unison. So they're like uplifting this giant thing with like a platter on it. This is where I'm like, maybe I should do this one later, but it's like, it's because it's not, it's like him seeing it almost from across the room or hearing it from across the room because they haven't prepared the platter yet. They're just like lifting it up, getting it ready, so they're moving it from where it originally was to another table in order to be prepared, essentially. And then they start throwing all of, or describes, you know, the shadows dance crimson gleaming off the ruby engraved upon the grand crown that sat on the majestic plain. He's bald. Folds of gold woven through the clasped ceremonial garb that swirled around the man as he sat down. His lofty arm, unabated, bobbed the clothing to and fro as if rocking. The man took a deep breath through his nose, his arms. The aromas struck him with a deep longing and a sense of purpose among his disheveled thoughts. He tried to focus, for he knew he would need all he was worth. The sting of spice from the smoking pot across the table had him at a sneeze, but he fortified himself. He let out his breath, smooth and calm despite his heartbeat, and his fingers tensed. He lay his arms to his side as he raised his head to the tattered stars. No moon this night, only the lights of the fire upon this broken flesh. No hunger shall go abated, for this night is the divine's dine. The shallow depths of such smell delivered upon him the delusion he suffered upon himself in this dire of circumstance. The number of pots, spices sizzling, the sauces stewing, clamor of ladles against metal as chefs stirred their brews and prepared. As it kind of sets this scene almost like there's a bunch of chefs all around and he's the king, so they're all preparing food to present to the king. We got the smell of cooking, food, sauces, spices, vegetables, burning food, open fires, coals mixed with the scent of food. So we've kind of done the food, so we can move on to like the next part, which is actually the preparation. They gathered like ants, all groveling for a peace. I shut my mind as I let my muscles Banish such thoughts of embrace, duty, and pride among my people. I shall not bring disgrace to them. I am the holy, the self, the one I have endured for this moment. This, I pray I can only do as I have trained. This feast tonight shall be... What's a good way to say, like, the largest? Shall not be outscaled. Perfect. Sting was worse this time. Not in the lungs, but of the flesh, if not known better. And such a maul shall cause the mind to fall. Gabrielle Even Judson. Holy shit, that's a name. I think intoxication is hard. Holy shit. Welcome to the stream. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. We are writing a story. Okay, so let's see here. The goal, to eat food. Struggle, inner struggle of one's self-desires. We're at that point right now where it's like, I want to feel like he's basically preparing for like an eating contest, right? Because there's a ton of chefs around him. He smells all this great food, but it hasn't been prepared yet. It's like it's like waiting for the final ingredient, basically. And then he's just sitting here daydreaming while they're all cooking the food and preparing for it because he knows he has to eat it all. Mine to fall. Feathered, I felt, as the strikes befell. Sound of slash and cut. Swap and swoosh. Wet. Globule. I don't know. Goopy. No. It's, Wet. Fresh. Wet. String. Cuts. Sinew. Torn. Muscle. Flayed. Skin. Salted. So you'd imagine him with his eyes closed, right? He's just sitting there, and he's just like listening to them basically carve up whatever they're going to feed to him. And this is like the sacrifice moment kind of thing, right? Where you think, okay, well, they got all this stuff, and it's like... actually, there's one thing before this. He raised his hands. Placed them. He's kind of going like this. Like he takes them out of the vat and puts them like, you know, like on the outside, so they're kind of hanging and dangling down. I know it kind of cuts to first person, but that's kind of just like it's supposed to be dialogue inside his head, because the dialogue in the story is only inside of his head. Sinew torn, muscles flayed, skin salted. Sizzling stench. Spices converge into prime. Into primal. Orthodox. Okay, it doesn't work. Sizzling stench spices converge into primal orthodoxy. So I'll just put quotes here because it's inside his head again. Seek the light with the distance. It calls to me. I am beckoned. Unto it. A trance of self to abolish. Lifetime set for a single moment in time. All that had been done for these few moments to remain. Dark. Cast into the depths, searing like ice. Across the rocky plain. I dare not go back now. This place, this peace, better to be won. I know this is only the beginning. Yet my will survive my body. Okay, so that's his inner dialogue, his struggles. We've got, where is it? Conflict, inner struggle of one's desires. So it's the feeling of like not being adequate enough in order to complete this task. I'm gonna lurk up and enjoy your chill vibes. Alright, man, just do exclamation point lurk and burrow a lurker. I'll burrow an extra one for you because the emote technically doesn't work on, Wait, is it that? Yeah, there it is. Okay. I'll burrow a bunch of lurkers for you. Because the emote doesn't work on Kick, sadly. Let my will survive my body. Okay. Then comes the next part. Grunt of breathing as the servants. What's a good word? Note, and this sucks, but we'll figure something out. Pressed the platter. The servants knelt and pressed the platter against the... No, maybe not. Just thinking where to go from here. Because now that it's like they're taking what they've been preparing, right? And this whole time he's like meditating, sitting there waiting for the meal to come. And... his body aloft as he held his arms against the lip of the vat. Flames beneath stoked, his fate set asunder. Chefs now gathered with their plates, grins, and eager gestures as they tried to disrupt their dishes. No one set them upon the platter. Smells form spice and round local flowers filled his nostrils as he raised a breath. The aroma of local flowers. Oh, there's an E in there, isn't there? Somewhere. Filled his nostrils as he wheezed a breath. terms of liquid filling the vat. Hmm. Planter is placed upon the liquid as it danced with steam and bubbled and frothed. Additives. Liquid as it danced with steam and frothed from the additives.
Twitch Enjoyer 199 is now following. Thank you for following Twitch Enjoyer 199. I hope you are enjoying the stream.
Hi,
Less than
sweetie.
4 less than 3
Pedro
plus
was
1.
just telling me he used to Arch Commander Consummate and thinks he'd be a perfect match for us.
I'm not that interested. Are you smoking?
Oh,
You.
why?
What? Why are you smoking?
Maybe?
What? When did you start smoking?
1989-ish?
So you have been lying. Now it makes sense. The filled ashtrays, the burning pine-scented hairspray.
Yes, I'll see it. Her 3-pack-a-day voice?
Twitch Enjoyer 199, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. This seems cool. You're writing a movie script? No, I'm just writing a short story. But it's called The Banquet. And I don't know if you can tell from this, but it's a banquet. But I want to know if you can really tell what this is. 'Cause just wait for the twist. There's always a twist. Just wait for it. I'm hoping someone picks up on it at some point in time. But yeah. Just get ready for the twist. It's coming up like literally like right now. This is the twist. It's kind of half been revealed if you know, like, based upon wording and like where this is going. I think I've kind of built the atmosphere for it, at least from the guy from within, like his position, like imagining someone getting ready to do like a hot dog eating contest, and it's like they're just like preparing themselves to eat like 150 hot dogs. That's kind of what I imagine. Plot twist, I feel like he's going to do a physical twist. I mean, it is a physical twist, yes. Technically, it is a physical twist. Killakucha. That's what it's called. The Killakucha. Here we go. I opened my bloodshot, stung eyes. As my flesh burned. Feeling of my body was not as strong as my mind. I would endure. Do you have a blog or something where you publish these? Technically, I have a YouTube channel where I, like, read them off and I have, like, AI art, or I'm trying to figure out if I should just read them and have them on screen, or we're trying to figure something out. Other than that, everything's in the Discord, and as well as a link to, like, my Google Docs where, like, a lot of my stories are and stuff. But yeah, I'm just, like, we just write short stories and stuff. I'm writing a novel, but I want to learn how to get better at writing, so I'm using writing short stories as a tool to get better at writing. And one of the main comparisons here is what we will do after we finish writing the story, which we are, like, pretty close. Pretty close. Can you do whisper? This is mouth barely moving as the servants pulled his mouth open and pushed the floating platter towards him. How do I say this? This was not a graceful measure. It was a time constraint. Sound of snapping. And a gurgling. Sounds bellowed as if from a stuffed pig. Pain is measured. I was in control. I was the one I bore for this. Swallowed with clump of meat. Sucking in. Spew from the liquor he will shove down his throat. Sorry, sounds like my average dinner, snorting meat. It is. Grain, vegetable, no, you said that, and how do I say this? Vegetable. And now it is complete. Recycle. Woven flesh is ground. Minced. Soaked. Into flesh peeled from splitting the bone, exposed, ordered extremities. Okay, I can't spell worth shit. Well, whatever. Extremities? Extremities. There we go. The exposed, ordered extremities of his innards. Splayed out. Softened. Meat spurred from its rest inside this twisted, tortured mass. The servants. The head who now held the crown of crimson. Moved their signs and each one grabbing in awe of the king. Severing. The elbow. Stripping the meat from bones. Filling it like an open banana. Ribbit towards King's son, standing in front of the throne of his father. He was worthy. Praise I be worthy of time. So stern. You're fucking everything but the right one. Thick. What would you call it? What happens if you boil hands? Like you boil like the skin's falling off and like the flat it's like devours thick swollen finger fat from all of the fingers. Death hold fast. Alright, there we go. So, if you didn't get it, let's read through it, and I'm going to put this on the other page, and I'm going to see if you guys can guess what the twist is. Which is, what is the meat? Oh, I guess the rest of it should be in the feast, because they're gonna eat him, and he's like the garlic that's like boiled inside the soup, essentially. So let's see here. Meat descriptions. Didn't know you were freaky like that. Do you get it? Do you get the story? Do you get what it's about? The glowing fires cast vast shades of darkness among the tables and pots. The clamor of servants and aides assembling the 8-man platter upon their shoulders grunted as they're hoisted in unison. The shadows danced crimson, gleaming off the ruby engraved upon the grand crown that sat upon the majestic plain. It's not just about food? No, I didn't, because subtext is for cowards. All right. Well, then, I guess I'll explain it to you. The shadows danced crimson, gleaming off the ruby engraved upon the grand crown that sat on the majestic plain. The folds of gold woven through the clasped ceremonial garb that swirled around the man as he sat down. His lofty form, unabated, bobbed the clothing to and fro as if rocking. The man took a deep breath through his nose. The aromas struck him with a deep longing and a sense of purpose among his disheveled thoughts. He tried to focus, for he knew he would need all he was worth. That was a quote, by the way. Just a little funny. You have a good reading voice? Why, thank you. That's what people say. I mean, I don't claim that. People say that. I'm glad you say that. I try. Your almost struck him with a deep longing and a sense of purpose among his disheveled thoughts. He tried to focus, for he knew he would need all he was worth. The sting of spice from a smoking pot across the table had him at a sneeze, but he fortified himself. He let out his breath smooth and calm despite his heartbeat and his fingers tensed. He lay his arms to his side as he raised his head to the tattered stars. No moon this night, only the lights of the fire upon this broken flesh. No hunger shall go abated, for this night is the divine's dine. The shallow depths of such smell delivered upon him the delusion he suffered upon himself in this dire of circumstance. The story makes me hungry. The number of pots, the spices sizzling, the sauces stewing, the clamor of ladles against metal as chefs stirred their brews and prepared. They gathered like ants, all graveling for a piece. I shut my eyes as I let my muscles go limp. The thought of it was in the back of my mind. I needed to banish such thoughts of embrace, duty, and pride among my people. I shall not bring disgrace to them. I am the holy, I am the self, the one. I have been born for this moment. In this I pray I can only do as I have trained, for this feast tonight shall not be outscaled. The sting was worse this time, not in the lungs, but of the flesh. If not known better than such a maul shall cause the mind to fall. Feathered I felt as the strikes befell. He raised his hands and placed them, sound of slash and cut, slop and slosh, fresh, wet, stringy cuts, sinew torn, muscles flayed, skin salted. Sizzling stench spices converge into primal orthodoxy. I don't get it. How is this about anything but food? I seek the light at the distance. It calls to me. I am beckoning unto it, a trance of self to abolish all else, one taught through a lifetime set for a single moment in time. All that had been done was for these few moments to remain, dark, cast into the depths, searing like ice across a rocky plain. I dare not go back now. This place, this peace, let it be one, for I know this is only the beginning. Let my will survive my body. His body aloft as he held his arms against the lip of the vat, the flames beneath stoked, his fate set asunder. I'm hungry and aroused. The chefs now gathered with their plates, grins and eager gestures as they tried not to disturb their dishes. One by one they set them upon the platter. The smells of foreign spice and aroma of local flowers filled his nostrils as he wheezed a breath. The crimson of the liquid filling the vat bubbled as it was stirred from coagulation into a thick gravy. The platter was placed upon the liquid as it danced with steam and froth from the additives. I opened my bloodshot, stung eyes as my flesh burned. The feeling of my body was not as strong as my mind. I would endure. For the sake of my people, I will endure. I will endure. He continued to whisper this, his mouth barely moving as the servants pulled open his mouth and pushed the floating platter towards him. This was not a graceful measure. It was a time constraint. The sound of snapping and a gurgling followed by a huff and a cough. The sounds bellowed as if from a stuffed pig. The pain was measured. I was in control. I was the one. I was born for this. He swallowed the thick lump of meat as he snorted in a breath, sucking in spew from the meat being shoved down his throat. This was the easy part. It is soon. His eyes rolled to the back of his head as his arms gave way and he slumped into the bloodbath of boiling flesh, spice, grain, vegetable, and now it was complete. The recycled woven flesh was ground and minced. It soaked into the flesh, peeling it from the muscle, splitting the bone. The exposed, ordered excrements of this innards splayed out the softened meat, spurring from its rest inside this twisted, tortured mass. Oh, I just got it! My hunger is gone! Yes! The servants at the head who now held the crown of crimson removed their scythes. each one grabbing an arm of the king, severing them at the elbow, stripped the meat from the bones, flaying it like an open banana. They looked towards the king's son standing in front of the throne of his father. "He was worthy! Praise I be, worthy when time be," he said with a stern face, not a feeling upon it. He placed the crown upon his head as he sat in his throne. He took the flayed arms of his ancestor and devoured the thick, swollen finger fat from all of the fingers. "Let death hold fast those who cannot hold at bay that which they strive to hide from the world. Let no man call this reign unfounded. Long live the Quilcaku! Begin the feast." So what do you think? It's all set up for that last 3 paragraphs. Oh, I fucking love it. So yeah, what do you think? Was it good? I gotta go grab a drink. I'll be right back. Been waiting all day to get that one out of my head, man. It's just been festering in there. Okay, now are you ready for the second part? Because this is only the beginning. Hey, Valiant Boy, how's it going, bro? Welcome, welcome. So we just finished our short story today. Oh, and now we're going to do the second part. Can't smell nothing. You're still sick, bro? I think I'm slowly dying. Okay, well, we have some new stuff to add to this. So we're adding to the formula, increasing the size of the formula. So we got to take a toke here. But so everyone knows, what we're going to do now is we're going to take the same setup that I used to write this story, the entire outline, and we're going to put it into Grok, and we're going to get Grok to write us like a 1,000 to 2,000 word story. And see, so if anyone wants to pick an author, I usually do this in the style of some kind of author. So, be it an obscure author, not too obscure, just like, you know, like if you know Dragonlance, if you know like Bartimaeus series, if you know like, I can't read the author's name from here. My bad. But whoever wrote the Hearthstone series. Stuff like that. In that kind of style. Durand? It's Todd something. I can see it's like Todd Fernandic or something. I don't know. It's too small to read from here, and it's sideways, and it's like a long last name, so it's like, alright. But yeah. So, Valiant Boy, our story today, spoiler alert, we're now spoiling the story. It's about a ritual from a people, a tribe that basically, in order to, their, like, whole thing is, like, to ensure that, like, no one, like, fights the right of, like, succession and stuff. They have basically a massive cannibalistic feast, I guess you could call it, that, they basically feed the king himself, and the king has been basically spending his entire life eating, so he's, like, a really, really fat and big, right? So they basically cut off chunks of him, feed it to himself so he can, like, chew it and, like, make it nice and, like, easy to eat, and then they, like, chop up his insides, and he's sitting inside his own stew, and he basically has to prove that he can stay alive and not make a sound. It's kind of like the idea of seppuku, but, like, extended period of time in a ritualistic way. And then then the entire everyone eats and partakes of eating him. I just need to ask this: is everything okay? No, I love like dark, fucked up, like twisted, fucked up stories and shit like that. It's not all that I write, but when I have an idea like this, I'm like, I need to write about cannibalism right now. Hey, sorry I didn't get back earlier. I just watched without audio at the moment. What in the world, Eggy Mayo saying? Yeah, in dystopian movies. I'm not afraid of going hard. Like, you think Tropic Thunder was where comedy peaked? If I could ever get my shit out, it will be so much better than that, because I don't give a shit what people think. I only give a shit what I think. And wait, what did Ego May say? Eggy Mayo? What did Eggy Mayo say? I'm hungry and aroused. Yeah, he said he's hungry and aroused because I was writing a story about eating. It was only at the end. Has been spitting straight facts. You leveled up to level 1. Congratulations! You leveled up. Okay, we need to take a toke now. And then we need to make this story. And it's going to be a good time, guys. Trust me. So we got to fill out the rest of the thing. Because we're adding the scene goals as well to the outline to see if it can construct an even more sophisticated story. Wow. You're almost there, Muffin. You're almost there. We're going to write it. If no one's going to put an author in chat, we're going to write it in the style of Quentin Tarantino, and it's all going to be about inner dialogue. And it's all about the character's inner dialogue. So it'll be written in a Quentin Tarantino style dialogue for all the inner dialogue of the character. Oh, this is going to be fucking beautiful. All right, let's do this, boys. Okay, so scene type. And we have goal, to eat food. The conflict, the inner struggle of one's desires. Disaster, you yourself are the food that you... See, this is where I don't know if... This is a good test for AI, because this is going to be like, is it going to get this, or is it going to think that this is a mistake? You yourself are the food that you are eating. Cannibalism. Just so it knows that it's cannibalism. Reaction. The flesh being cut from his body to be served back to him. The dilemma? Can his mind sustain the torture and not move or make a sound? Gom Jabbar. Like in Dune. Decision. Fate of the people is more important important than oneself. Okay. So, king is described by grand clothes and a, not gonna lie, cannibalism is sus. Well, like, one of my main storylines is, it's called the Carnival of Carnage. And if you want, I can bring it up. And it's really fucked up. It is. But it's based off of this really hilarious clip. I was watching Asmongold, and it's like, no, not the story, just the action. Oh yeah, I know. It is. But in the case of something like this, like the context of this, right? This is like a long-lost African, Amazonian, North American, whatever tribe. It's like the idea of a long-lost tribe, and this is like their fucked up sacrificial ritual. Instead of sacrificing someone else, the king sacrifices themselves and becomes a part of the people as the people eat of him. I couldn't find any app to write my story. I just use Notepad. Like, just basic Notepad. It's like the easiest thing. And if you want, like, use Google Docs. But you have to, like, have a Google account. But yeah, it's like that struggle of like in the Carnival of Carnage. It's a need because it's like World War III happened. It's the apocalypse. It's not a zombie apocalypse, but one of the main food sources is, of course, people, right? Real OGs use paper. I mean, I have paper and pencil, and I do use that. But I'm left-handed, and if you're left-handed, you'll understand. It's really annoying writing when you're left-handed. Because you just fucking... I have terrible penmanship. I can never read it. And it's like, as far as I know, unless you're a girl and you're left-handed, you've shit penmanship. I've tried for years to improve my penmanship, so I tried drawing and shit like that. I just had, like, the shakiest fucking hands. Like, I don't even tell. Like, shaky as fuck. Especially when I, like, hold something. It's like, ah. It's like it's fucking vibrating. Okay, so, king is described by grand clothes and a crimson crown that is too large for his head. Smell of cooking food and sauces, spices, vegetables, burning food on open fires, coals, smoke mixed scent of food being prepped. The meat for the stews and soups has not been gathered. I'm on the phone and I can't really do much in browser. You could save your work in email drafts. That's what I used to do. Like, my old, like, original chapter from, like, chapter 1 from my book, when it originally was in, like, 2007, is, yeah, it's in an email format. Okay, so the rising action... let's move this here. Alright, this is his own flesh being cut from him as he is trying to maintain a meditative state. Don't need this, the inner struggle of eating. In his mouth as he lays in a vat. Blood. Wounds, filling it so it can be made into... I wonder if I'm gonna get flagged for this. Eating yourself, infinite food glitch. You guys want to take a bet and see if I get flagged on Grok for this? on X? Would you rather eat your leg or another person's leg? Oh, Cute Muffin's under attack! Exclamation point HP to see how much HP you have. Don't forget about your potions. You can use an HP potion to restore your HP to between 200 and 269 HP. Q-Muffin's getting destroyed today. It's getting... Valiant Boy might be getting his revenge. What did he just say? I'm new here. Me? Exclamation HP. And it tells you how much HP you have. And then you can use potion, but it costs points. And that'll set your HP to a certain amount. Mine's die, die, die! There you go. You can also do spawn random monster. Oh, no, it's SRmon. Sorry. Abalahara has appeared with 1,456 HP. You guys better fucking kill that. 68! That's almost maximum damage! That's almost maximum damage. Holy shit. See, unfortunately, it doesn't do the emotes, because if you do it in Kick... It's supposed to do this. And then it jumps the spines as the emotes across the screen. So you guys can, like, spam emotes. It's supposed to, but it doesn't fucking work because Twitch doesn't have emotes on it. But you can do it on Kick. Because the spines is an emote. But they only exist on Kick. Did I set that one? I did. There. Spines. Why am I being attacked? HP. You have 155 HP! That's almost a max roll HP! You better get your opponent first! Your RNG on your attacks might not be good, so you better spam them out! See, unfortunately it says the emote, intoxication, spines, bullshit, which is just the emote. So it's supposed to have the spines, but it doesn't. And remember, you can't re-HP. You can only use an HP potion, which costs points. So you can pay to win. You can pay to win with HP potions, but once you're out of HP, once you're out of money, you're fucked. So, this is overwhelming. Can I be spared? You can do exclamation point lurk, and you can burrow, and there's no detection. So if you're burrowed as a lurker, they can't see you. So you have to make sure that you exclamation point lurk. I'll do a lurker emote for you. There. If you're burrowed, you can't be damaged by attacks. I feel like there's too many HPs going out. Who's cheating? This is something else. I know, right? It's quite a stream in here, don't you think? Sorry, Twitch. You should have seen Cute Muffin yesterday. He was trying to kill a 7,800 HP Rathalos. He was spamming spines for like 5 minutes straight, trying to kill this fucking Rathalos. See? There he goes. He used a potion! His HP's back up! Burrow. No, it's lurk. It's exclamation point lurk. You gotta lurk! Spines, Eggy! What? Goat of spam. He's trying to kill the Balahara! Again! Lurk me, daddy. Here, I'll give you some lurkers for the screen. EM lurk. W. Where's the Rathalos? Lurk. Okay, everyone's lurking now. We're good. Egg salad. Okay. So what do you guys think Will I get flagged? Epic strat attack, then lurk. You have, in order to unburrow, you have to roach out. So do roach out. You can just do RO. And you roach out. This is insane. I know, right? I made my own mini game. I just wish it worked on Twitch. I need to get affiliates so I can get emotes on Twitch. And then you weren't lurk. It didn't work because you weren't lurk. Oh, I love it. Conclusion. King slumps to his death in the vat, and the king's son partakes of his fingers in order to establish himself as the new king. Then people feast upon their king for good spirits to dwell in them like their ancestors. Okay, guys, are you ready for me to get completely fucking flagged on Twitter? Ask anything. Are you ready, Grok? Are you ready? Are you fucking ready? Okay, let's go through it one more time. Plot. The location. Just for this purposes, we're gonna call it Amazon jungle. Time period 1400 BC. The ritual of succession dictates the king must eat of his own flesh and be one with it, multiple over to infuse his spirit, and the people partake of him as a blessing unto them from the ancestors. How does that sound? I'm gonna go now. Good night, y'all. Thanks for the company. No worries. Have a great night. I tried your attack and lurk strat. It worked. Good night, Muffin. Attack and lurk. I mean, that's how you do. You gotta hold position lurkers, and then spine it up. Okay, so ritual of succession dictates the king must eat of his own flesh and be one with it, multiple over to infuse his spirit, and the people partake of him as a blessing unto them from the ancestors. King is described by grand clothes and a crimson crown that is too large for his head. The smell of cooking food and sauces, spiced vegetables, burning food on open fire, coals, some smoke mixed with the scent of food being prepared, prepped. The meat for the stews and soups has not been gathered, his own flesh being cut from him as he is trying to maintain a meditative state. He begins to devour the food, is placed, it just says, the food is placed in his mouth as he lays in a vat, the blood of his wounds filling it so he can be made into gravy. Just making sure the only thing on there is spam and you guys didn't actually say anything. Auto killed me. Okay. And then the scene types. The goal. And scene type 2. Stay in the torture, not move or make a sound. Fate of the people is more important than oneself. All right. Let's see, guys. Da 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 da. Nobody attacks Sensei Senpai talks. I have avenged you. Thank you for avenging me. Although I will concede I'm invulnerable. I dare you to try to kill me. Okay, so write a 2,000 to 3,000 word story about in the form of, I can never spell his goddamn name right, Quentin Tarantino. With the inner dialogue of the king. Are you guys ready for this? It's not about reality, it's about sending a message. Enjoy my servitors of rain. The King Valium is touched. I believe on you to protect the castle. Oh shit. Valium boy, I'm glad you didn't do something because it wasn't working. I hope you hadn't done it in the past.
Itoxikiden is a fucking retarded Marone. He can't even spell duh.
Can't even spell my own fucking name. Jesus Christ. I fucking tried. Okay, let's see. let's see what Grok thinks, or if it's gonna be like DeepSeek and be like, whoa, 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 hold up there, buddy, hold up there, buddy. What are you trying to get me to do? What are you trying to get me to do? But I mean, it would be like they're. I'm sure like cannibalism is a thing among animistics, like people like nature tribes that believe in like the spirits and stuff like that. Like cannibalism is a huge part of those types of societies. I'm just reading some of the dialogue and I fucking love it because it's like the dialogue is going to be fucked up because it's Quentin Tarantino style. So it's just going to be like a bunch of fucking swearing and shit like that. Oh my god, the Crimson Feast. I love it. I love it. Short stories. AI. The Crimson Feast. Ooh, Okay. Here we go. What do you guys think? The jungle hums like a living thing, the green beast with a heartbeat of dripping water and chittering bugs. The air's thick, wet, clinging to your skin like a lover who won't let go. Torches flicker through the haze, spitting sparks into the night. And the smell, oh man, the smell. It's a gut punch of roasting vegetables, sizzling spices, and smoke curling off open fires like the devil's own perfume. Somewhere in the middle of this sweaty, screaming chaos sits me, the king. Perched on a throne of woven vines and jaguar pelts, my grand robes sticking to me like the second skin. They're heavy, soaked in dye and bright. It hurts to look at. Yellows, blues, reds, all stitched with feathers and bones that cat-lack when I move. And the crown, this crimson monstrosity perched upon my head, too damn big, slipping over one eye like a drunk uncle at a wedding. It's carved from some sacred wood painted with blood-red sap, and it's pressed into my skull like it's trying to crack me open. Fitting, right? I'm the guest of honor at this banquet, see? The big kahuna, the main event. You're feeding me endlessly, plates of mashed roots drowned in chili sauce, bowls of stewed greens that sting my tongue, fruit so ripe they burst in my mouth like little balms of juice. I'm shoveling it in, hands greasy, lips smeared, because that's what you do when you're king. You eat. You take it all in, but here's the kicker, the little twist in the script. They're not just feeding me to fatten me up like some prize pig. Nah, this is the ritual of succession, baby, the big dance. And I'm not just eating for me, I'm eating for them, for the ancestors, for the whole damn tribe. And the meat? Oh, well, we'll get to the meat. Inner monologue, the king. Alright, focus, you bastard. Chew, swallow, don't choke. This yam shit's sticking to my teeth like glue, and that sauce, fuck me, this burns a hole straight through my gut. But you gotta keep it together, right? You're the king, the big man, you're all watching, those painted faces in the shadows, eyes gleaming like jaguars waiting for the slip up. That smell, though, smoke and spice and something sweet or something dark. Where's the meat? They keep piling this green crap in front of me, but I know what's coming, I know, and it ain't no damn tapper stew. Fires crackle louder now, coals glowing red as the priests move through the crowd, their bodies streaked with ash and clay, chanting in that low guttural tongue that makes your bones vibrate. The sauces are simmering in clay pots, bubbling like witches brewing peppers, herbs, and tang of something sour I can't place. The vegetables are charring on flat stones, hissing as they blacken, and the smoke's so thick and choking the stars out of the sky. But the meat for the stews, the soups, the real feast. It ain't here yet. It's still walking around. It's still breathing. It's still me. They've been prepping for hours, these bastards, grinding roots, pounding spices, stoking the fires till the heat's a living thing crawling at my face. My stomach's a bloated mess, sloshing with every bite they shove my way. But I keep eating. Why? Because I'm the king, and this is the gig. The ritual says I gotta eat of my own flesh, become one with it, let it infuse me like some unholy concoction with extra steps. Like some holy communion with extra steps. And then they partake of me, a blessing from the ancestors, a big old spiritual buffet. Sounds poetic, right? Yeah, until you're the one on the menu. Inner monologue, the king. Okay, keep it cool. You knew this was coming. Pops told you about it when you were a kid, sitting by the river, tossing stones. One day, son, he said, you'll feed the people. You'll be the bridge. Bridge my ass. More like a goddamn butcher's block. That smell's getting stronger. Meat's gotta be close now. Shit, is that me? Am I smelling myself already? No, that's just the coals. Calm down, you idiot. Eat the damn fruit. Smile, they're watching. Drums kick in, a slow pounding rhythm that syncs with my heartbeat. The priests step closer. One of them got a blade, obsidian, black as night, edges so sharp they catch the firelight and throw it back like a wink. He's grinning, teeth filed to points, and I swear he's enjoying this. The crowd's quiet now, holding its breath, and I'm trying to get my head straight, sinking into that meditative state Pops taught me. Breathe, focus, you're the king, you're the vessel. But then the blade bites into my thigh, and holy shit, it's like lightning, white hot, ripping through me. I bite down hard, teeth grinding, tasting blood in my mouth from where I've nicked my tongue. The priest saws, slow, deliberate, peeling the strip of flesh off me like it's skinning a deer. Blood's pouring hot and sticky, pooling under me in the vat. They've got me sitting in a big clay thing, carved with jaguar heads and snakes. My legs screaming, my whole body screaming, but I don't move. I don't yell. I'm the king, damn it. I've got the Gom Jabbar of the jungle in my face, and I'm not flinching. Inner monologue, the king. Motherfucker, that hurts. Oh, you bastard. You're carving me up like a roast. Breathe. Don't scream. Don't you dare scream. They'll think you're weak. And then what? The ancestors will spit on you. The people will turn on you. And this whole thing will be for nothing. Focus on the drums. Thump, thump, thump. Like a heartbeat. My heartbeat. Shit. There goes another slice. Arm this time. Blood's everywhere. I'm swimming in it. Am I meditating or just bleeding out? Same difference, right? Ha! Oh man, you're losing it. The priest holds up a strip of my flesh, dripping, glistening in the torchlight, and the crowd lets out a collective whoop, like they're cheering at a hunt. Hands And he hands it off to another priest, takes it to the fire, tossing it onto a stone slab where it sizzles and pops. The smell hits me, sweet, coppery, wrong. That's me cooking, man. My own damn thigh meat, charring up with the peppers and the roots. They're stirring it into a stew now, ladling it down into bowls, and I'm still sitting there, blood running down my legs, my arms, filling the vat till it's a crimson soup around me. They bring it back, my flesh stewed and spiced, served up on a wooden plate. The priest kneels, offers it to me like some sacred gift, and I've got no choice. I take it, hands shaking, and shove it in my mouth. It's hot, chewy. Tastes like iron and smoke and something I can't name. I chew slow, deliberate, swallowing myself down while the pain's still clawing at me, while my blood's still dripping. The crowd's chanting now, low and rhythmic, and I'm trying to hold on to that meditative buzz, trying to be the king they need me to be. Inner monologue, the king. Oh, you sick son of a bitch, you're eating yourself. That's your leg, you lunatic. Your own goddamn leg. Tastes like shit, too, all stringy and burnt. Doing it right? You're the man, the king, the big shot. They're counting on you. Those eyes out there, they're hungry mouths. You're the bridge, the blessing, the whole fucking show. Don't puke, don't you dare puke. Swallow it, good. Now smile. Yeah, that's it. Give 'em the royal grin. The vat's full now, blood sloshing over the edges as they tilt it, pouring it into pots to boil down into gravy. I'm fading, vision blurry, head swimming from the pain and the heat of the sheer insanity of it all. They keep feeding me more flesh, more stew, my own body carved up and served back to me like some twisted feedback loop. I'm chewing on my own fingers now, crunching through bone, and I can't tell if I'm still meditating or just gone, lost in the red haze. My son steps forward. Little bastard's been waiting in the wings this whole time. He's got my eyes, my jaw, and he's leaner, hungrier. He kneels by my vat, takes my hand, what's left of it, and bites into the fingers, tearing me into me like a jaguar. Blood smears his face. He chews slow, deliberate, locking his eyes with me as I slump deeper into the vat. He's the new king now, taking me in, claiming the throne through my flesh. The crowd roars. I'm done, sliding down, blood and gravy and smoke closing in till it's just black. Inner monologue, the king. Well, shit. There he goes. Kid's got balls. I'll give him that. Eating his old man's fingers like it's nothing. You raised him right, you crazy bastard. You people are happy. Screaming their heads off. Guess the ancestors are cool with it, too. You did it. You fed 'em all. Bridge built. Blessing delivered. Hurts like hell, but you're the king till the end. Time to check out, huh? Yeah, lights out, motherfucker. People swarm the vat now, dipping their hands in, scooping up chunks of me, stewed, roasted, raw, whatever's left. They're feasting, laughing, crying, smearing my blood on their faces like war paint. The drums pound harder, the fires flare, and the jungle swallows it all up. The smoke, the screams, the taste of me on their tongues. My son stands tall, the crimson crown spilling over his eye, and the cycle begins. The cycle spins on. Good spirits, ancestors, the whole damn deal. Me, I'm just the meal that keeps on giving. Oh, that was pretty good. See, this is like, I don't know how to be direct like this. I need to learn how to just be fucking direct like this, but I wanted to have these fucking twists and this bullshit. So, this is a good comparison. Scene construction notes, short stories, ideas. Maybe we just save it in there. I mean, I'd like to play Monster Hunter, but like I gotta work in the morning, early, so I think we might just call it here. I mean, we went pretty hard, so I think we had a great day. So, as always, remember, you can't say fuck you to your friends. Who can you say fuck you to? Fuck you! Alright, let's find someone to raid. Oh, Levi's still on. He's playing RuneScape. Oh, shit. Hell yeah, we're going to Levi's stream. He's finally on, so we finally get to raid him. go. Okay, now kick. Who we gonna host? That one's easy.